The client thought we were loading her stuff into the van too slowly. In the end, she saved 20 bucks but ended up with losses of I work as a mover for a very small company. My boss, let's call him Mike, is genuinely a good guy. In reality, our team is just two people, Mike and me as a subcontractor, plus a couple of regular guys we bring in for big moves. The work is physically very tough, but most of the time our clients are great, and they pay pretty well. Most people are just happy that someone else is hauling their heavy stuff and loading it into the van. We always try to be as careful as possible not to damage the building or the furniture itself, and people appreciate that. But not this lady. Let's call her Darcy. Darcy contacted Mike and said she had a small storage unit that needed to be loaded into a 6-meter van. We said no problem. But as the moving day got closer, so did a snowstorm. A few days before the move, the news started saying the weather would get really bad for this time of year. It's not uncommon for us, but it's still serious. We called Darcy a couple of days in advance to suggest rescheduling the move to avoid the storm, but she insisted the move had to happen on that exact day. Other days wouldn't work. Many, perhaps smarter movers would have just canceled everything, but after some discussion, Mike and I decided we could handle it. After all, we've worked in snowstorms before. You just need to dress for the weather and be extra careful not to get hurt or damage anything. The moving day arrived. We showed up at Darcy's storage unit, expecting to see a standard 3 by 3 by 4.5 meter space, as she described over the phone, and load the stuff into a 6-meter van. This was a 2-hour job, and that's what she had already paid for. The snow was coming down hard, and the first thing that raised a red flag was the van itself. Instead of a 6-meter one, we were greeted by a huge 8-meter van. Darcy met us at the van and led us to the storage unit. Darcy, well, here's our storage unit. We closed our business, and I'm moving to another city to look for new opportunities, so everything needs to be loaded in 2 hours. Last time, the movers unloaded it in about the same amount of time. Mike noticed the van was bigger than she had said. Darcy, yeah, this was the biggest one we could rent. Last time we hired a different company, and their van was even bigger. I'm worried if everything will fit, but you guys figure it out. I need everything loaded. It was a massive storage space, the kind where you could store a couple of cars and some farm equipment. When we opened the gates, it was filled with the contents of several fairly large offices. A dozen of those tall metal cabinets from floor to ceiling, several tables, office chairs, huge glass desks, all incredibly heavy. According to our company's internal rules, one person can't lift more than 45 kilograms, but in reality, it's impossible to strictly enforce that on site, so we usually use common sense. Even if the weight is slightly over, almost everything here was beyond the limit. But we had the right equipment, and we had the strength too. Mike and I are both pretty strong, but by my estimate, this would definitely take more than 2 hours. Mike told her we'd do our best. Honestly, he should have been upfront right then, and said it would take more time, but I think he was hoping we could get it done quickly and see how it went to avoid worrying the client too soon. Darcy spent most of the time sitting in her car to stay warm, which is understandable since it was about minus 19 degrees Celsius outside with a real snowstorm. Though, every now and then, she'd roll down her window to make a comment, mostly about how much time we were spending going up and down the van's metal ramp, which was now covered in ice and snow. Over an hour passed. Darcy got out of her car and started chatting with Mike about the previous movers, who, according to her, damaged some of her property but were very fast. It was weird. She'd complain about them, then praise them for their speed, constantly calling them the professional moving service she hired, which was incredibly annoying because her tone clearly implied that since we weren't some big national company like MyFlower, we weren't real professionals. Even though, damn it, this is our main job. At this point in the move, it was clear we wouldn't finish in 2 hours. Mike decided it would be reasonable to warn her. We'd probably need an extra half hour, and that was still an achievement, considering the amount of stuff and how carefully and tightly we were loading the van. I'm actually proud of how I play Tetris with furniture in the truck bed. Darcy wasn't happy. She started getting mad, saying we were just trying to squeeze more money out of her, and that we were dawdling and slacking off. Then she went on about her pro movers, saying they unloaded everything in 2 hours, so loading should take the same amount of time. Mike explained that unloading always takes less time than loading, because everything is moved into a more spacious area, and you don't need to pack and stack things with padding to keep them from getting damaged on the road. I also added that there was a blizzard outside. For crying out loud, and we were only slightly over the time frame. She shut up and was just fuming with anger. Mike realized how mad she was and told her we wouldn't charge for the extra time since it wasn't her fault the weather was so bad. He also reminded her that the previous movers damaged her stuff, while we were doing everything carefully. Darcy, I don't care. You said 2 hours, so it should be done. Just finish it. I'll leave you a terrible review. And with that, she stormed back to her car without even looking back. I'm usually a calm person, but this woman was seriously starting to piss me off. She's yelling at my boss, calling us lazy, while we're risking our health hauling her heavy junk in a blizzard. That was too much. Mike thought for a second. I know how important client reviews are for us as a small business. The site we get booked through shows the latest reviews first, and if there's a bad one, it'll sit there forever, scaring off others. So I expected Mike to try to please her, but instead he just smirked, looked at me and said, Mike, screw it. You heard what she wanted? And so began the malicious compliance. She wanted everything loaded in 2 hours? So be it. The front half of the van was loaded carefully, everything stacked with padding, tightly from floor to ceiling so nothing would shift during transport. I'm actually proud of how I can load trucks safely, reliably, and without wasting space. But the second half, it was an absolute nightmare, the sloppiest loading job of my life. Huge, heavy office furniture was thrown in haphazardly at the weirdest angles, heavy but light, just to empty the storage unit and close the doors. We even put a very heavy office chair on top of the glass desks. I want to clarify, we've never intentionally damaged a client's property and wouldn't. We take pride in our professionalism, politeness, and ability to deliver your stuff intact. But in this situation with such unsafe weather, and this lady's complete disregard for our safety and labor, we just couldn't take it anymore. In reality, we didn't damage anything. Everything was intact when we closed the doors. But literally the first bump or sharp turn on the road, and she'd have hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in losses. We closed the van doors and went to Darcy's car. Mike told her we were done, and that he wasn't going to charge her for the move at all. She snapped back that she wasn't poor and didn't need charity. Mike just said it was clear she was unhappy, and he didn't need her $150. Yeah, we charged $75 an hour, so that extra half hour to do everything properly would have cost her a whopping $37. He canceled the order and refunded her entire prepayment. As we were driving away in Mike's car, I looked at him. Me. You realize when she gets to her destination, she'll have a ton of damaged furniture. She'll probably write us a furious review and might even try to sue. Mike. She was freaking out over $37. I doubt she'll want to spend more on a lawyer. Plus, if the order's canceled, you can't leave a review on the site. We did exactly what she asked for, and you know what? It was worth every penny we didn't make just to see her face when I told her I didn't need her $150. When he dropped me off, he still paid me for my time because, yeah, screw her. My boss, Mike, is a genuinely good person. Write your opinion in the comments. Did the author of this story, or rather his boss, do the right thing? I get that it might seem like the story is pretty clear-cut, but on the other hand, imagine you wanted to get a move done quickly, and then this happens. Anyway, I'm waiting for your opinions, and here's the story.